Based on what you've learned, you are capable of selecting quality stocks that are attractively priced, but there are still some practical questions to answer before you start building your portfolio. How many stocks should you buy? What to monitor after purchase? When to sell? Just to mention a few. Let me focus on the ideal number of positions, the degree of diversification first. Buffett said that diversification is protection against ignorance. It makes little sense if you know what you are doing. This quote is often totally misunderstood as it was taken out of context. It is true that Warren Buffett has a highly concentrated portfolio of stocks, and he advocates this so-called focus investing approach as he devoted his life to investing and spends all his day reading and processing information about his companies, but he never suggested that you should follow his example unless you are willing to put in the same amount of hard work. In fact, he says that maybe 99% of people who invest should extensively diversify and not trade. Or the other way is to bring intensity to the game and start evaluating businesses, devoting the necessary time and effort. If you do this, extensive diversification is really a mistake. So the alternatives are either you pick Buffett's approach and bring intensity to the game, or you diversify. It's hard to decide if you do not see clearly what Buffett's version of investing means. He practically spends all the day reading trade magazines, SEC filings, annual reports, and so on. When asked about how one should prepare for an investment career, he came up with a simple answer, showing a stack of reports, trade publications, and other papers. He said, "Read 500 pages like this every day. All of you can do it, but I guarantee not many of you will do it." So the recipe is simple, but not easy to follow. If you are curious about Buffett's life, these are the 3 best books I've read about him. These are about the person and not the investment philosophy, but you should see the big picture before making the decision which way to go. The sharp focus on investing came at a high price, as Buffett's first wife left him and practically found him another woman who could take care of him. This is not the part of the super investor's life you hear the most about, but even the quote about the wedding rings can suggest how devastated he was. Buffett's way of investing works only if you are willing to sacrifice everything else and put investing in first place in your life. It's easier said than done though. And before committing yourself to this approach, I encourage you to spend the whole weekend reading the annual reports of all the companies on your shortlist. And do not skip the footnotes either, as these often include important information about some changes in accounting policies. What you should pay attention to are not these details, however, but your true feelings. Be brutally honest with yourself. Do you take pleasure in reading such stuff? If not, you won't be able to do that for more than 50 years, 5 or 6 hours a day, like Buffett has been doing. Understanding his thought process is definitely easier than putting in the same amount of work. The chances are that after answering these questions, you recognize that you belong to the 99% of people who shouldn't follow Buffett's lead into focus investing. As you will not spend days reading SEC filings, you must accept that you won't know everything about the companies in your portfolio. Earnings and even cash flow figures can be cooked, and if you do not put in the time, intensity, and effort, you will surely not be the first to notice it. You'd better admit and accept these facts. On the other hand, dividends cannot be fudged. A company either pays you or not. This is the metric you can follow without devoting all your life to investing. I hope it sounds rational that a continuously growing dividend can be the sign of a healthy company, while a dividend cut hardly ever reflects positive trends in the underlying business. Financial freedom can be your realistic goal. Becoming the next Warren Buffett is much less likely so. This is why I encourage you to stick to the dividend as your main indicator. Of course, with a pure dividend focus, it is irresponsible not to diversify. Even Warren Buffett makes mistakes, and so will you. And your mistakes shouldn't have a devastating effect on your passive income, as I've already told you. This is the main reason for diversification. It is important to emphasize that picking the way of diversification doesn't mean any kind of surrender or the admission of not being good enough. On the contrary, it shows that you have a clear goal, that is to achieve financial freedom based on dividend income. And the more diversified your portfolio, the safer your income can be. So this is the approach that matches your goal. Of course, you should always observe the rules and do not buy questionable quality at higher than fair prices just for the sake of diversification. Filling your portfolio with junk just to increase the number of positions is not something you learned here. For me, a well-diversified portfolio starts at 30 positions, but I even feel comfortable with 100 or more companies that produce growing dividend income for me. You should commit the same dollar amount to all your positions, so make them equally weighted. Of course, the number of positions can depend on your investment capital as well. If I had $10,000 to start with, I would probably aim for 10 or 20 positions, planning to contribute more money to the portfolio regularly, while a starting amount of $100,000 would mean I would start building my portfolio with $1,000 purchases, aiming for 100 positions, but once one of my existing stock positions showed a significant unrealized loss, I would probably buy more of that if the company still met all my quality requirements. I most likely wouldn't increase the stock's weighting above 3% in a conservative portfolio, however. At Interactive Brokers, I pay a commission of $1 per transaction, so this is not a factor that influences my decision about the degree of diversification. The key to building a quality portfolio is patience. Take your time and do not hurry the portfolio building. Act when opportunities present themselves, and you will have a diversified portfolio of quality dividend payers involving the top companies of several sectors. Exactly as you planned. This can give you the feeling of safety, which is hard to overrate. I recommend that you read this blog post about diversification, and in the next video I will tell you what to do after you buy a stock, how to monitor your positions, and when to sell.